Hola y bienvenido a un nuevo episodio de Two Chaps, Many Cultures. Hoy hablaremos sobre por qué tantas personas celebran el 5 de mayo y por qué tantas otras no lo hacen. Manténganse al tanto.
What he said. That is my score. That was absolutely fantastic. I've never seen anything like it.
Well, coming from a native Spanish speaker like you, I really cherish that. Well,
absolutely.
my Mexican friends will tear me a new rectum if I screwed this up, but it's all right. I did try my best. Welcome, everybody, to Chaps Many Cultures, episode 194. And I'm not going to say the number in Spanish because that always trips me up. Yeah, the number one show on the internet about the business of culture and the culture of business. And today, I tried my best at Spanish because today is the 5th of May. Oh, and that rhymes. So today is the 5th of May, which is Cinco de Mayo in Espanol. And Cinco de Mayo has a special meaning, right? What's the meaning, Brett?
Apparently, is it Mexican Independence Day? Is it, I mean, everybody from the Latinx world, our wonderful friends in the Latinx world celebrates this, don't they? With tequila and
all of them.
All
of Latin America celebrates Cinco de Mayo.
All of them, yes.
With a fresh bean burrito at Taco Hell. No.
No.
I just dissed the major chain. All right, so let's clear the air about this here. When I first came to the United States, I was curious what the Cinco de Mayo thing is, and I had never heard of this holiday. And then I asked my Latinx neighbors back when I lived in Tennessee. I had neighbors from Peru, from Guatemala, from Honduras, and they all like, yeah, we don't know what this is either. So we have no idea what's going on. And they said, I'm sure it's something Mexican. So I asked the Mexican friends, and they said, yeah, maybe if you are from a certain part of the country. So I think this has now reached the common awareness for many people in North America, and especially in the United States, that Cinco de Mayo is not the Mexican Independence Day. In fact, when is the Mexican Independence Day? Pop quiz, Brett.
September 19th, is it?
Or 18 or 16 or so? Yeah, September. I remember September.
September anyway. It's nowhere near May. It's nowhere near May. And I have a, I was kind of, of course, we try and research these things, so we kind of pretend like we know what we're talking about. But I was interested to read that it was kind of not unlike my experience with Anzac Day in Australia, where it really is it celebrates a small battle, but a battle that really was impactful in the mindset of the Mexican people, and actually a very small part of Mexico, Puebla. So, but it is something that it made me realize how even a small event can have such an impactful expression in a culture and then live on in infamy. Right. It is September. Thank you, Sandra. I'm assuming this is still Sandra who says that yes. And I think I'm hoping the no, yes. No is in response to my facetious reference to Mexican Independence Day, and I hope the no is not in reference to my good friend's attempt at Spanish. I think that would be.
I hope not. But Sandra, I believe, is, if I'm not mistaken, Sandra is joining us from Saudi Arabia. So cool on you to be here. If yes, she says yes. So there we go. Excellent. Excelente. So the small events that create a ripple effect after the actual event and outside of the region in which they originally happened, right? So I think that that's quite fascinating. And I was confronted with this, or when Brett and I talked about, what do we do about Cinco de Mayo? Is this one of these cultural appropriation episodes like we did on St. Patrick's Day? And I'm torn. I don't think Cinco de Mayo, the way people in the US are observing it or imbibing it, is necessarily insulting or cultural appropriation. I think it evolved a little bit, and I do want to, and at least this is how I understand cultural appropriation. I think cultural appropriation is an issue, or can be a negative thing, when the dominant culture is taking something from a traditionally sidelined or underrepresented culture and takes one feature, one aspect, one behavior, one tradition, and co-opts it into something of commercial use, or puts it in a context that it doesn't apply anymore, like Justin Bieber wearing dreadlocks. Like that I think is a no-go, right? But the way the US is adopting a day of celebration from a particular region in Mexico, because the Mexican or the Chicano or Tex-Mex population in the US saw something in it that gives meaning to their existence, or gives another a reason for corralling like-minded people around an issue, then I don't think it's appropriated in a negative way. It actually is brought to life in a way that it does in fact celebrate something. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good delineation. Well, it's a good way to frame it. And of course, we want to bring in Patricia, who is here, another wonderful Spanish speaker. So Latin American Independence Days are in September. Hola, of course, the reference to the Spanish speaking. And Janet is listening also from Central Florida.
Hey, Janet.
And look at this, just because, Feliz Cinco de Mayo. Wonderful. Yeah. And then, so no, I think that's a good point. And you're right. It is almost like that cultural appropriation sometimes is used in terms of saying, well, we're not talking down, or we're not thinking less of these cultures. We embrace them. We celebrate. We try and celebrate their heritage. In fact, but doing it in a way that is uninformed and not from the right or the same perspective as what you described there, where it's used as a rallying point of somebody of a group of people that can have this affinity for this experience. So that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
And I don't want to diminish the commercial aspect of Cinco de Mayo. I think Cinco de Mayo has been around since very close to the actual event that we're celebrating. I'm going to get into that in a second, but it became a nationwide phenomenon in the US and beyond due to commercial interests of manufacturers of alcoholic beverages like this one, or if you're more the mezcal type, of this one. And I mean, please note that I didn't bring a glass with it. It's not the time yet, at least not where I live. All right, but maybe
sure.
Right. So there were some commercial interests, but I think researching the date a little bit brought something to my attention, brought a historic connection between Mexico and the US and Europe that I was not consciously aware. So many people know that Cinco de Mayo honors or celebrates the Battle of Puebla in 1862, I believe, when the Mexican army defeated the French army, and the Mexicans were outnumbered 1-2, and the French were much better equipped, and the French hadn't lost a battle at that point for the past 50 years. Remember Napoleon, Europe, conquering half of the continent, those French, right?
They were on a roll.
They were on a roll, and they wanted their money because Mexico was owing money and they didn't do so well. And the British and the Spanish said, okay, we'll push the pause button on you paying us back. But the French needed money. Napoleon III needed money because he was afraid that the Prussians, the Germans again, were going to kick his butt, and he needed to up his military. And he sent ships to Veracruz on the Caribbean coast of Mexico and said, Mexico, Benito Juarez, who was the president of Mexico at that time, pay up, give me the money. And that ended in a battle or in a big fight. And the Mexicans miraculously won. And they defeated the French at that very battle. That didn't mean that they defeated the French for good, because the French came back a year later with 4 times the amount of troops and kicked Benito's presidential behind. So there was French rule in Mexico in the 1860s. But by the end of that decade, and also by the end of Napoleon III in Europe, and by the end of the Civil War in the United States, the French had left, and Benito Juarez was back in power. And there is some historic what-ifing. Had the Mexicans not defeated the French at that time, the French would have potentially stayed in Mexico and supported the Confederacy in the Civil War, so thereby giving potentially history a completely different course. So the Battle of Puebla isn't simply a regional military event that is helped Mexicans find their power against European overreach. It potentially impacted many other events around that era, right? So it's not to be diminished, but it's by no means the day of national independence for Mexico. That actually had come decades before.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. And knowing Patricia as a wonderful creative person that she is, actually has the ability to do a one-woman show to show this, because Patricia speaks both French and Spanish. I think that would be great. saying, or yeah, I would be saying oui, not si.
Yes.
That's right.
Exactly.
And yeah, so these, again, you know, even these small, just referring back to other things that have happened around the world, where small battles can have such an impact on subsequent events down the track. The framing of it, and I know the subsequent French coming back and trying again, learning from their mistakes, right? But these are just kind of facts, right? They're just historical facts that we like to kind of look back on, frame what the meaning of Cinco de Mayo is, not dismissing that it can be used, just like it is in that when I referred to that Anzac reference in terms of Australia and the connection with Turkey and New Zealand. That has now become a rallying cry for the collective honouring of people who have served their country in times of war and given sacrifice and that kind of stuff. So these, again, these are great events that now, as it comes an expression of in the public sphere of a celebration of a certain event, that but it is still important to know what the origins are culturally, because you want to be respectful for the people's, you know, they may have historical family heritage wrapped up in it, and it needs to be honored for both sides. You know, both sides of a battle, are respected in this sense. So I guess that's the intent of us bringing this up, and not talking down to people who obviously we think maybe are appropriate. Doesn't mean you can't go out and enjoy a nice sniffle of tequila, as I heard that.
Now, we chose the image for this episode with a little bit tongue-in-cheek, right? So there's a few things you may want to reconsider. So the sombrero, maybe not a good idea. Also, don't put it on a Chihuahua dog, because as we now learned, the battle was not in the state of Chihuahua, it was in the state of Puebla. And I think as of today, it's not necessarily observed nationwide in Mexico. I think the state of Puebla and the neighboring state of Veracruz are observing it in more serious way, but not in bathing in this, right? So there's but what I find interesting is how the Latinx community, or the Mexican American community, maybe to be more precise, in the US has put some emphasis on this day because it does, I guess, give it a good meaning for an underrepresented community in those parts of the U.S. where Mexican populations have consistently grown, right? Since the 1860s, Mexican Americans in California observed Cinco de Mayo, and now it's being done across the country more or less, or in areas where there is a big Mexican American population. I think it coincided with the civil rights movement in the 1960s when underrepresented subcultures in the U.S. fought for their share of attention, for their share of fair treatment, for their share of recognition and acknowledgement. And if you're going to look at the Battle of Puebla and Cinco de Mayo from a historic perspective, it may simply be the last battle call of Europe's control over the Americas, right? Never since then has a European military force tried to put their foot down in the Americas. So this could also be seen as this liberating ourselves, and when I say ourselves, in this case Mexicans, from this colonial overreach, right? If you look at Mexican society today or 150 years ago, heavily influenced by its indigenous communities. I think the Mexico and other Central American countries are those countries where you still see a lot of indigenous populations thriving, more so than here in the United States. It is also this, hey, we the Aztecs, Olmecs, Mayas, Incas, whoever we are, we shoved it up the rear of Napoleon III, and out you go, and this is our land now. So if you look at the historic events from that angle, then I do find it quite appropriate that the Mexican American or even Latinx community throughout the United States sees this as a day worthy of celebration, right?
Absolutely. And just to make us feel even worse about what we're going to have for lunch, French crepes and tacos. That's quite a combination.
Patricia, you're making my mouth water.
Now, Patricia also has this wonderful connection to the Caribbean as well, and which I want to go back to your point about dreadlocks. I think I could pull dreadlocks off.
Yes, you could. Totally.
Just saying. Should I? Maybe not.
You mean in the back of your head? You mean, or
yeah, well, somewhere. Okay, might be right. more chance if I grow this one out. You grow the chin out.
Well, but I think it's interesting to consider this impulse that some have around, is this cultural appropriation? I saw a conversation evolve around this topic today on one of the social media platforms, and there was one person who said that they think that cultural appropriation is a bit of nonsense. So I wasn't quite sure that the gentleman didn't specify what he meant with that, whether they think cultural appropriation in and by itself is nonsense, the mere idea of it, or whether in this context of Cinco de Mayo it's nonsense. So I think we could talk about cultural appropriation on a broader scale and discuss whether that's a valid idea to discuss. I think there is such a thing as cultural appropriation, or cultural misappropriation rather, and I think it's not okay. In this case with Cinco de Mayo, or as we discussed earlier in March around and St. Patrick's Day, I think it's more of an adoption of a tradition in a diaspora. And why not? If you have some sort of cultural family connection to that tradition, why not?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what else can we say? Enjoy if you are celebrating Cinco de Mayo.
You've just given the thumbs up by Patricia. I guess she means the dreadlocks, not the rum punch. Okay. All right.
For it.
Maybe it will need some rum punch before you do that, but that's all right.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, what is it going to be? Mezcal or tequila? Or, of course, I drink other brands too, but these are the ones that I have present right now. So, or is it going to be beer, or is it going to be, I don't know, something completely different?
Right now it's lunchtime, and there's still work to do the rest of the day. So, I don't drink and work, but
you don't.
Yeah,
okay.
Not really. Not often.
What kind of Aussie are you? All right.
I know. And I just happen to be jumping off here in a minute and doing a session with one of my wonderful Mexican clients, and I'm looking forward to overplaying my sense of wishing him happy Cinco de Mayo and see whether he looks at me like I'm strange, because I think that would be a fair response.
I had a call this morning with a lady from France. Now that I'm thinking of it, this morning I had a conference call with a lady from France and a gentleman from Mexico, and he is from Mexico City. And then somebody said Cinco de Mayo, and he was like, whatever. And I said, yeah, you don't care, do you? He said, not at all.
No,
So,
right.
people in the capital apparently don't care. In Puebla, they do. Now, we're going to talk about this a little more today, but not now, because now we're closing this out because this guy has to do a training. But there's going to be a Clubhouse. So if you're on Clubhouse, make sure you check in at, what did we say? What time was it?
It is 3, what is it? 3 Central.
3 Central, 4 Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. I think that's 3 at Puebla time. So tune in on Clubhouse. We're in the Global Mobility Club, and we're going to talk about Cinco de Mayo, what it means for you, and how it is not culturally appropriating. I may or may not have had a drink by then. We'll find out. And join us at Clubhouse. And yeah, Janet is asking, is that on the Global Mobility Club? Yes, Janet, that is on the Global Mobility Club. At least that is my understanding. We are simply being summoned to be there. We didn't put the room together. So I'm suspecting that's going to be it.
Yep, Christine's organized it, and we're all set to go, I think. Apparently,
I think so.
And we are very honored to be guests again for the second week in a row.
We're on a roll.
Second week in a row. They've invited us back. We didn't actually wear out our welcome the first time, which is not usual for us.
Yeah, that's the first for you, right, Brett? All right.
No, okay. For me, they never ask me back. They never ask me back. And go, I can't even understand what this guy's saying, let alone what he's. So
for all of you, enjoy your whatever Cinco de Mayo celebration or festivities you have planned for today. Be responsible about it. Enjoy. Don't overindulge, because you're gonna regret it tomorrow. With that, 2 Chaps, Many Cultures, we're out for today. See you again on the next episode. Ciao for now.